Well, hello there. I was half expecting our exciting video, but we will have to kick it off straight from the bat. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a live session with the wonderful Joe Su, the CFO of Hashrate Asset Group, where we're going to be talking Bitcoin, and we're going to be talking Bitcoin, and we're going to be talking Bitcoin, and also about how you can get involved as and get some exposure to hash rate to hash rate the company and hash rate the actual raw resource, the element that makes it all tick, right? How can you get exposure to Bitcoin mining? It's a very exciting STO. Joe, I'm very happy to see you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. So, hi everyone. My name is Joe, the CFO from HAG, Hashrate Asset Groups. We're pretty excited, to have this first demo with NX, and we can share like our passions on our Bitcoin mining and some good product we could share too.
Yeah, I'm. My passion for Bitcoin is that's my wife jokes that it's my number one love. I don't think so, but maybe we'll leave that to her. Before we go into HAG, I want to know a little bit more about you, Joe. Just you know, how did you come around to Bitcoin mining? How did you land up where you are now? Maybe you can give us a little nutshell, quick brief about Joe.
Okay, sure. So, yeah, I'm Joe. Usually, I used to work in the TSMC as an engineer. And so during that period of time, I realized that some there's a big demand for the Bitcoin mining, especially for the SIC chips providers. So I like high tech. So I think okay, there's a big demand for the Bitcoin mining. So what is Bitcoin? And I'm really interested in this area. And then after that, I joined the VC funds, the Web3 focused VC funds, to really start my career as the crypto native kind of like person. So overall, I think my passion for Bitcoin start from the early when I first have some access to the Bitcoin minings, and I think the beauty of decentralization really attract me a lot. So the ownership about your own stuff is what make crypto so beautiful in my way. So yeah, so starting as an engineer and moving to a corporate finance to do some VC investments, I think I have some like good experiences in the in technical, I mean in tech backgrounds, but also corporate finance backgrounds to do some compliance business. So overall, I think this is where I'm coming from. But my passion for Bitcoin and passion for some high tech and passion for the decentralization, the beauty of decentralization is what makes me here come the HAG, the CFO in HAG.
A CFO that's an engineer, that could only happen in Bitcoin. That's Bitcoin for you, because
Yeah, because
you know, like
yeah,
every Bitcoiner is has to be, you have to be, know your cryptography. You need to know your SHA-256, know how that works, and you also have to understand Austrian economics. You have to have sort of a background in that. So I think that's what attracted me to Bitcoin in the first place, just the multidisciplinary nature of it all, and the fact that you can have an engineer CFO, and it's very it's not something you would see in the shipping industry, for example.
appreciate it. But I studied business back in school. I majored in accounting, finished my master degree in management in Duke, the Fuqua School of Business. So I do have some robust knowledge about business as well. So
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure. I'm sure you do. But it just it was more a comment on the fact that there's no specializing in Bitcoin. If you have to, when once you go down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin, for example, you understand the halving. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. There's a 2024 halving coming up. That's something that's, if you want to understand how the halving works, for example, something that I didn't know about Bitcoin until recently. Like I was reading Jameson Lopp's content, and he mentioned that the 21 million limit is actually not written anywhere in the code. That 21 million number, rather
Mm.
the halving there's Bitcoin halving. It started off at 50 Bitcoin every block that is minted. It goes down by half every 4 years, and there's
Yeah.
only going to be 32 halvings in history, in ever.
Mhm.
So those
Yeah.
32 halvings, if you work out the geometric sequence, they'll
Mhm.
lead to an asymptotic number of 21 million Bitcoin. So these are
Yeah.
the kind of things that are, it's both economics because it talks to the
Correct.
supply of of a money system, the monetary supply, which unlike the Fed that can just, you know, click printer 10 trillion
Yeah.
to go. This is, it's set in stone, but it's also
Mhm.
computer science, and it's also, behavioral science and consensus, because you know you can change the code tomorrow. Technically
Yeah.
speaking, it's just, if you change the code, you'll create some sort of a world war amongst the Bitcoiners. So you want to
Correct.
avoid that.
Yeah. Correct. So, but I think it is also what make like Bitcoin so sexy because based on formula, we have some definite answers to what will become in the future. So there will be no like the hand or like the invisible hands to control all the things. We know what it is and what it should be, and this is defends how we believe in decentralizations.
Yeah. I think it's that, the invisible hand. Like a lot of people, like the people that are pro, fiat, they like to talk about the Fed's role as a lender of last resort and how important it is to have a money supply that can expand and contract to meet the
Mhm.
economic situation. But I think
Yeah.
there's something to be said about, letting the economy, letting the free markets, uh, play out. And
Hmm.
we see it time and time again where there's bailouts and more money infused into the economy, and more rescue measures, temporary rescue measures that only all they do is inflate and inflate and inflate and inflate, and
Hmm.
that it becomes a lot easier to justify them in the future. So I think having a very clear monetary policy set in code,
Yeah.
I definitely see it as some sort of a future. But I think Bitcoin is very different. You mentioned how early you got in, and it's very different now to how it
Hmm.
was when you first entered, especially on the mining front, right? Back in the day, you could take out your laptop GPU, download some, mining code, and have it run. Today, you need a industrial size operation. So maybe you can talk a bit about that. Like, how do you see from your eyes, from your vantage point? Like,
Hmm.
give me like a fast forward through the last 10 years of Bitcoin mining.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I could share some like because we already been to like Hong Kong and Taipei and do some roadshows, and I always like to ask two questions. First question is how many of you guys hold the bitcoins, and usually about like 70 to 90%. Yeah, me also 70 to 90% of people they hold the bitcoin, or at least they buy the bitcoin before. But the truth is that only about 2% maximum that has a direct access to the bitcoin mining. So accessibility ratio for the Bitcoin mining is pretty low, I would say. And like what you have said, because of having the value mining difficulty, now you need a lot of like capital to buy some like the latest mining equipments. And by the way, you need to have a chance to make that order to buy the mining equipments, right? And then you take about 4 to 5 months to get those mining equipments shipped and set up, and then you can start mining. But what's there would be that you have to maintain those hash power. It's really time consuming. And usually we have engineered to do so for the hash power maintenance, like 7 24 hours. So I would say it is really time consuming and it's pretty hard for individual for in nowadays to join the Bitcoin mining. So I think HOG's value is here, what you're gonna do in the future is like going to the INX, one click, boom, you're ready, right? You just
Yeah.
join the Bitcoin mining directly. So yeah, so in brief, like mining difficulty is getting difficult, but we think we got a strong team and some good partnership with INX to make the Bitcoin mining really at investor doorstep. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think like I did this study once, I was looking into the mining economics, and back in the day, it was one of the ant miners, and that's another aspect of it. Like you said 4 to 5 months to ship the machines. By then, it's already obsolete because there's a new mining machine out that can do more terahashes per second, so yours isn't really worth much. So that's also part of the criteria. And I worked out something like crazy, like a few thousand days it would take you to mine one, but to mine a Bitcoin, if you ran a machine on your own, one machine would take you, taking an assumption that all things being equal, I think I got to like 3,000 days, maybe like you'd be mining for 10 years. That's without joining a pool or without doing what you guys are doing, which is giving investors an opportunity to get hash rate exposure without having to go set up the miners, ship the miners, set them up, just cooling, like just having to deal with keeping the miners cool is a
Yeah.
whole science and in and of itself. I'm sure you can testify to that.
Yeah, so I could share some story about this. Like,
I love stories.
I had been to Texas. There's a mining farm there. I think for Texas in the summer, like temperature is crazy high, and the water there is the quality is not that good. So we had to really figure out some. We had to find some good engineer to tackle like the cooling, right, and some hair like water quality maintenance, so everything. So I think for maintenance, hash file maintenance is really another story. Like buying equipment is one thing, but maintaining equipment is another thing. And these two things are all, I would say, so require lots of expertise in
Yeah,
these two steps.
and economies of scale, of course. Like if you have
Correct.
one miner, isn't enough to go. It's like that. And I think before we move on to, I want to actually ask you about, that your mining ac- activity and expertise up to now. I want to ask you like why you chose to now, take a copy paste and scale on a global level using a security token offering. But I think it's also important to, speak to the decentralization strengthening aspect of what you guys are doing. The more people that are getting involved and taking stakes in mining, the stronger and more resilient Bitcoin becomes. That's something that the Bitcoin haters, they love to chirp about, like, oh, there's one or two minor mining pools that are controlling most of the hash power. But then I keep coming back and telling them that's not how, in order for Bitcoin mining to be economically feasible, hash power has to coalesce into pools. But every single individual miner, every single individual investor in HAG security token can take the opportunity, can have take a decision where to put his stake, where to put his money, where to put his hash power, and that
Mhm.
contributes to the decentralization of the network.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I think to fulfill this like the spirit of decentralization or like self-sovereign, I think HAG has a vision to let everyone have the access to the Bitcoin mining because we think Bitcoin mining is a good thing, but to fulfill the spirit of decentralizations is what we also I think believe is important, right? And usually for like why we choose a security token because we think security token is they got several advantages. First is the fully compliance, right? you know like if compliance should be the pre-assumptions, I think, for the next round of mass adoptions. So we do the compliance business before because we got like members from the traditional financial institutions and some got like listed company. So we do a compliance business before, and I think to let the Web3 have the mass adoption potentials, compliance is important things, right? This first, and security token second advantages is about the intrinsic value, right? They should be the underlying asset behind every security tokens. So for HAG, it is the hash power behind HAG tokens, right? So I think to provide some sense of like trust among HAG and HAG's holders, security token is a good way to earn their trust through the compliance and also the like underlying assets way. And the most important thing is like really fulfill our visions through a security token is that security token lower the like increase the liquidity and lower the barrier for people to have the access to the real world assets RWA. I would say, tokenized RWA could provide some good liquidity for the investor to the retail, especially the retail investor, to have some like a short, like a small amount of incremental amount within the real world asset that usually require tons of monies. So security token, like you said, yeah, could fulfill these visions. So overall, I think the reason why we choose security token is for the security, for compliance, for liquidity, and for the fundamental value with the yeah.
Yeah, I think it's when people say IWA, that's starting to pick up as a hashtag and starting to get a little bit of buzz. Like, immediately some people's mind go to real estate and like boring Web 2 stuff, and here you guys are taking maybe the
Mm-hmm.
most incredible A, which is hash power, and using
Yeah.
that as the basis. And I think it create. We'll get into your tokenomics in a while, but there's a real, I would, I don't want to say flaw, but there's some sort of backing to the token price because it depend. Each token gives you a yield in Bitcoin, so there's
Correct.
some sort of a correlation between the token price and the Bitcoin price. It's not just, that's kind of one of the most common gripes of the crypto space of DeFi is that it's just synthetics on synthetics with no real underlying backing. Yeah, so like people
Correct.
create one fake token that can then be leveraged and wrapped in another fake token that can then be staked for yield on another platform, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
a cycle of nothing. Whereas here,
Yeah.
you basing the fundamental underlying value of the token on hash power,
Mhm.
which is
Correct.
the asset of the future.
But in fact, HAG, just like echoing what you said, HAG do have the fundamental value, right? So if you use the cost method to think about the HAG, it should be the price of that mining equipment, right? And based on historical data, the price of mining equipment is highly correlated to Bitcoin price. So overall, we think the fundamental value for HAG is highly correlated to Bitcoin price. But what makes HAG even more attractive for investors is the dividends that we are distributed to them in WBTC. So it's more like the interest-bearing asset that is highly correlated to the Bitcoin price and in the compliance way, and also with some like direct ownership to certain underlying assets. So I think that's make HAG even more attractive compared to the Bitcoins and also with the fundamental value.
Yeah, for sure. I want to hear more a little bit about your teammates and the ecosystem pushing the HAG STO forward. But before we do, maybe just explain to the people that are less familiar with what WBTC is, because if I'm hearing for the first time, I thought BTC was the Bitcoin ticker. So what's WBTC and how does that tie into Bitcoin?
Okay. So WBTC is the BTC, the reflecting asset on reflecting BTC on Ethereum. Let's say you need to have one BTC locked on the Bitcoin network, then you could mint one WBTC on Ethereum, right? So one BTC equals to one WBTC. But WBTC on Ethereum, they got more like application scenario. I think that's more like favorable to the investors we have. So yeah, so WBTC basically just like BTC but on different layer one.
Yeah. So, but essentially, you're talking about a wrap token, which is, a reflective wrap token, And I think what's important to notice about WBTC is that it's usable in DeFi, or
Yeah.
you can take it out. You know, there's different platforms out there that let you unwrap what it's called WBTC and then take it
Correct.
out if you want to hold real Bitcoin in cold storage. Because obviously, when you're dealing with wrapped tokens, you have to trust the smart contract that's wrapping them. So some people might want to take it out into cold storage, but WBTC also gives you the advantage of being compatible with DeFi on Ethereum. So if you want to, for example, lock your
Yeah.
WBTC up, stake it for more yield, you can
Mhm.
compound that yield that you're getting from hash rate asset group. Not financial advice, not legal advice, not life advice. Do your own research,
Yeah.
BYOB. But that is
Correct.
essentially
Correct.
the both sides, I think, of what a wrap token, what a WBTC is.
Correct. Correct. And we will do some like some hedging like strategy to make sure everything's so well if we're talking
Yeah,
about WPTC.
yeah. So maybe you can tell me a little bit more about your team, about what kind of squad you have surrounding you, and you know who's the main players in the HAG show.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, we got a team of veterans from I think three most related industries. The first will be the like financial institutions like Goldman Sachs or SoftBank. So we do a compliance business before, and now we want to do a compliance business in the Web3. So that's one part. The second part is the Bitcoin mining like business. We started our Bitcoin mining business back in 2014. So I think 8 to 9 years for us to join this in this area. So we got good expertise and some like accumulate lots of knowledge, like no matter it's macro or anything related to Bitcoins. We have some good understanding to this, and ranging from the software to the hardware, like Bitmains, Ampool to TSMC. I think we have some comprehensive exposure that is related to Bitcoin mining as well. And another member is also the investor to the Bitmains. Like FYI, Bitmain is the world leader in the Bitcoin mining equipment suppliers. So overall, we think we got a good network and we got a good expertise in Bitcoin mining, especially. And the next part I think is more related will be we have Magic Circle as our security token launching advisors. They're just like a security token IBD. So we think we got some like comprehensive and like pretty complete kind of industrial knowledge to make HAG happen.
To make it fly. It's very interesting. You mentioned Bitmain. So Bitmain are both investor advisor kind of role in HAG.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we have the partnership with Ant Alpha. And the Ant Alpha is Bitmain's 100% owned subsidiary. So I think in this kind of partnership, it's not exclusive, but it provides a source to stable, but and also the latest mining equipments and also
Yeah.
the most efficient hash power. So
So
I think yeah,
no,
please.
sorry, I just wanted to say, like you, as we mentioned earlier, like mining equipment is something it updates quicker than our phones do. So you want to be on the forefront. You want to be getting the latest and greatest at all times. So I think that's why
Correct.
it's very exciting for me to hear and for the viewers at home. I'm sure about this Bitmain relationship because it means you guys have sort of first refusal on the
Yeah.
on the unboxing of new technology.
Yeah. Just to add on, because the mining equipments that we plan to use will be the Bitmain's S19 XP and with power efficiency 21.5 J and the total hash power 140. And based our understandings, they use the 5 nanometer chips from TSMC. And this series of mining equipments, I would say, will still be the leader within the 2 years among the Bitcoin mining industries. So I would say the equipment that we're using is enough, stable, and I think to make some good yield on this.
For sure. Let's go into a little bit more about the token, the HAG
Sure.
token. So let's talk about the tokenomics and a little bit about what the investors can expect to receive in exchange for tokens. And what I love about these kind of conversations is that we're
Yeah.
not an RCO, we're not promoting a utility token, so we can say the word investor without being afraid. We don't need to, beat around the bush. So I'm interested to know, what is that? Tell me a bit about the HAG tokenomics and what the
Mhm.
utility, what the yield, what the value that token holders can expect to receive.
Sure, sure. So I think our tokenomics is easy to understand. So based on smart contract, we will distribute 70% of that yield from the Bitcoin mining directly to HAG's holders' wallets address as a dividend in WBTC. And the remaining 30% will become the reserve to maintain those hash power. So we'll use the resources to buy some new mining equipments or have some maintenance jobs on those mining equipments. So let's say so HAG could achieve what we say is about perpetual hash rate. So in other in the mining equipment's world, you might face your hash power decay or depreciation. So we use that remaining 30% to ensure that our holders will not face this issue and we have some sufficient resources to maintain those hash power. So 70% is what you get in WBTC, 30% is the reserve for maintaining hash power. And what to expect for the HAG's holder is that um, we'll distribute the WBTC as a dividends, and then we are talking closely with INX to make sure if it's monthly or quarterly. So we have not final decision on this, but we plan to have the distribution on a monthly basis in WBTC. And if we only consider, I think, the dividends, the APY ranging from 0 to 70 more percent, given different BTC price. So this is only about second layer of value that I
Yeah.
mentioned. It's only about dividends. APY could ranging from 0 to 70 more when BTC is given 50K, 15K to 60K. So I think APY is good enough, is favorable enough, and is also about interest-bearing assets that usually you cannot find in the Bitcoin relative area. So
Sure. I'm interested in the pricing of HAG token going into the IPO, to the STO. I read, in your materials that it's correlated to one HAG token is correlated somewhat to hash rate power, and that there's some sort of a variability in the pricing mechanism that you are going to offer investors. So maybe you can
yeah,
touch a little bit about that.
sure, sure. Just like I mentioned about, so we guarantee one HAG is equals to 1 terahash per second on the Bitcoin mining hash power. So, and also what I say is based on historical data, the price for those mining equipment is highly correlated to Bitcoin price. So in the PPN that will release later on to the public, we specify the formula that if the Bitcoin price, the Bitcoin reference price is how much, and then we will raise the HAG offering price by how much. But the floor price for HAG will be $48. And I think we will like disclose this pretty clear in our PPN, and they will be released later on in the future to the
Okay,
public.
cool. And how many tokens will there be in circulation?
I think the maximum will be 12 million HAGs.
And okay, and
Yeah.
of those 12 million, are they all going to be available for sale, or there's a breakdown somewhat?
Yeah, I think we will offering the HAG in trenches. So I think the 12 millions is the maximum offering, but we will first offerings first batch, second batch, based on the market conditions. Because mining business is that's dynamic industry. So
Yeah,
things move fast. We have to be agile enough to take all the things to ensure that all HAG investors acquire the best benefits. So that's why we divided our offering into tranches and based on the market conditions.
Okay, cool. And so that kind of sums it up. Thank you for your candid honesty and direct answers. I think it was very clear. Once that STO is live, you guys, you know, oversubscribe 12 million tokens because Bitcoin mining is on fire. You know, not so much
Mhm.
hash power, but the price is very high, which is the
Yeah,
opposite of what happened this year. I mean, this year or towards the end of last year, there was the price started dropping, but the hash power was making all-time highs. It was crazy
yeah,
to
right.
watch. So that's kind
You
of why
know,
you have to be agile. So once that
mhm.
raise is over, you know, or even during the raise, what do you guys plan on, you know, doing with the proceeds?
Okay, we'll use the proceeds, like deduct like necessary like cost, but we'll use all the proceeds to purchase the mining equipments to guarantee we fulfill that commitment that one HAG is packed to 1 terahash per second for every investors to every holders. So we'll use the proceeds mainly all for the purchasing the equipments. Of course, like there will be some commission fees for that next, but it's a minor things. But we'll use the remaining for the mining equipment's purchasement.
Cool. That's so you guys are, you know, this is going to be a an all-star purchase of mining equipment on bulk. People are going to get involved. It's very exciting. You know, let's say I'm a, you know, I am not. Let's say I am a Bitcoiner. I want to get some exposure into mining. I've heard of cloud
Mhm.
mining before, and that's generally
Yeah.
the angle that I would take. You know, that's what most people are familiar with. Maybe you can
Mhm.
explain a little bit about cloud mining and how that's similar or different to what your offer is at HAG.
Okay, cool. So I think the people that frequently access is the comparison between Bitcoin and HAG and the cloud mining. So start from the first part. What's the difference between the Bitcoin and HAG? So I think HAG is about the Bitcoin minings. And mine the Bitcoin, you acquire the Bitcoin at cost, right? But if you buy the Bitcoin, you are using the secondary market price to acquire Bitcoins. And for HAG, we provide an additional layer of like interest-bearing assets to the holders. So I think this is the two biggest difference between the Bitcoin and HAG. And for the HAG and the cloud mining, I would say I think there are different like there are lots of differences. First, it's about compliance. Cloud mining they are not compliant, but HAG we are 100% compliance. Secondly, HAG has the underlying asset that is the hash power. But if you join the cloud mining, you are only acquiring the right to share revenue with like rental the cloud mining suppliers. You do not own anything. You only have the right to share the revenue. But this is about centralized things. It might be a black box, I would say. And that's what it is. I would say is that cloud mining is in short term. Usually it could last about 3 to 6 months. So when Bitcoin price goes up, the price for rental like cloud mining will goes up as well. So you have to pay additional money to renew your rental. But for HAG, if you enter the market at $48, then you could use that $48 at a cost to start your Bitcoin mining. You don't have to do the renewal things. So I think there's a three major difference between HAG and the cloud minings. Yeah.
Interesting. So, like, you know, I never thought of that. That like cloud mining, you're not owning anything. They're just giving you some sort of a rev share in the Bitcoin that's being mined. But with the hash
Mhm.
HAG, you actually have hash power backing your token.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an advantage that people that like, you know, and also
Right. Same thing.
the
Compliance is everything. Is what
yeah,
we care about.
I'm just curious what you mean by cloud mining is non-compliant. Like, is that should that fall under securities regulation and they're not compliant with that, or is there some other law that the cloud miners should be made aware of?
Correct, correct. It's like HAG, we are SEC filed companies, and we have some like we spend lots of work on the regular jobs, talking with those here to make everything fully regulated. So that's what I mentioned about 100% compliance.
Yeah, and the last point is the variability in Bitcoin price, and or more specifically in the hash power of the network, where the cloud mining contract will adjust based on the hash power of the network. Maybe you can give us a bit of your understanding about kind of how the hash power in the network correlates to Bitcoin price, and
Mhm.
perhaps what's going to happen if Bitcoin price continues to fall. Like, what kind of risk management techniques do you guys have in place at HAG in the
Yeah.
God forbid should Bitcoin fall below a certain reference price?
Yeah. I think we have done our own research, and I think the correlation between the mining equipment price and the Bitcoin price, the R square is about like 95% up. So based on statistical results, is highly correlated and is technically significant. And I think, of course, like the Bitcoin mining is, I think, the supporting infra that is really critical to make sure the Bitcoin network works. So I think if the BTC price drop below the cost, the miners cost, the whole network will don't it doesn't work anymore, right? Because miner don't do the jobs, Bitcoin network cannot work. So based on the historical like data, there are only few days that the Bitcoin price dropped below the cost. So, but although this happened like really rare, we will do some hedging strategy to ensure that like we have some like ensure the best benefits we could provide to our investors. We start our Bitcoin mining business back in 2014. So there are lots of cycles within these 8 years. I think we do some great job in the past when we have some hedging strategy and mindset, and also from the traditional financial institutions exposure and experiences. We have some expertise to make sure like we have the best strategy to encounter when we encounter all of this.
I'm interested, like, what would be your mindset if, and I've seen some studies that show that when the Bitcoin price falls below when the hash rate, when it becomes unprofitable to mine, sort of, because the hash power you need to put in to mine one Bitcoin isn't worth the price of that Bitcoin. That usually signifies like a bottom signal, then and the price kind of rises from there. But typically, what a lot of miners do is they turn off their mines until the situation becomes a little bit more palatable,
Mhm.
a little bit more profitable. So I'm interested to know, like, what are your experience and your thoughts around dealing with, the adjustment in hash power, taking your miners offline, and, like, what kind of systems do you put in place to monitor that?
Yeah, like you know, when the Bitcoin given different mining difficulty, we could like calculate what will be the closing price for Bitcoin mining equipments. So when the price approaching that certain area, we'll do some hedge policies, like have some like short the Bitcoin price at certain value, certain price. So they ensured us we could pay the electricity cost. The cost that we are mentioning about the Bitcoin mining is mainly about the electricity cost to mine the BTCs. So if the price is plunge and to it's about to reach our cost, we will take a special notice on this and have some like hedging policies. But this policy is not fixed. It'll also be agile, and you're given different like markets, like products in the market to do the hedgings. We'll consider all of them and pick up the most suitable one for HAG.
Cool. That sounds like you bring a wealth of experience into the table, and I'm always, first thing I'm watching is hash power whenever I'm like analyzing the on-chain analytics. So it's exciting to hear from the horse's mouth about the play-by-play in the sector. So we're nearing the end of our time, Joe. I've had an incredible time chatting with you, and it's the first of many.
Awesome.
And I think just let's end off with a little bit of forward-looking statements, not about a HAG, not maybe a little bit about a HAG, but sort of how do you
Mhm.
see the industry, 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? Like, where do you think Bitcoin's going, Bitcoin mining, and what kind of a role do you want to play in that future?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the Bitcoin is the future, and we believe in it. And because of like the decentralizations, the I would say the real scarcity, and there's a like emerging demand for Bitcoin, especially some application like layer two application to Bitcoin networks. So if the supply is fixed, the demand is going. So based on economies, of course, the value of Bitcoin is going to be the uptrend. And based on historical data, those cycles, usually are uptrend cycles. So I think what we believe in Bitcoin and think how we do how we could make Bitcoin, the Bitcoin mining to the mass adoption levels is compliance. So that's why we spend lots of time, lots of effort to ensure we are 100% compliance. And this not only give the Web2 investors believe in what we are doing and have some sense of trust on us, but also I think is a pre-assumption for the mass adoptions. I think this is important, and this is what HAG want to achieve. First, become compliance and to let everyone have direct access to Bitcoin minings, which we are really experiencing, and also to have and we look forward to any like applications on HAG. HAG is based on ERC 144 and is basically comparable to the ERC 20. So application scenario for HAG in the future is still huge. So overall,
What
I
do you
would
mean by
say,
application scenario? What kind of applications
yeah,
do you envision?
yeah, I would say it's more like what working on the ERC 20, the DeFi is also
Yeah,
applicable to the ERC one four
yeah.
four. So
Yeah,
I think the
you're talking
application
my
will be
language now. Like using hash rate as hash rate power, to back DeFi. And we were talking about it earlier, about how the
Mhm.
whole DeFi ecosystem in the cryptos, like a lot of the criticism it receives is that it's just a circle of synthetic assets being
Yeah.
wrapped and being collateralized and being staked and being leveraged in
Mm.
to create more synthetic assets. But over here, you can have that ecosystem. You can have
Yeah.
all those benefits of collateralized lending, of swaps, of whatever else you want to do in DeFi, but you can do it with having a hash rate be the underlying real world asset and I think it's also, we're talking a little bit about Bitcoin becoming a geopolitical play before we got on the show. And I think in the future, it's very likely that governments are going to be mining Bitcoin as well. So the fact that you guys
Correct.
are coming in with a compliant play sets you up, future proof your business and your concept
Mhm.
into a world where some government might want to take a stake in Bitcoin mining as well. I
Correct.
definitely see that, potentially happening in the future.
Yeah, I think three most important message I would like to convey about HAG. First, 100% compliance, and second, we lower the threshold for everyone to have the direct access to the Bitcoin mining. And that's one of the interest-bearing assets that is highly correlated to Bitcoin price. And we are looking forward to the next cycle, the bullish cycle on Bitcoin.
Yeah. As are we. Joe, thank you so much for your time and your
Thank you.
expertise. It was wonderful to
Mhm.
chat to you, and I wish you good. When is hash rate going live? When are we, what are the timeline in the short term from here on out that you can share?
Yeah, we are looking forward to let more and more people have the access to the direct Bitcoin minings.
Cool. And do you have any timeline, timelines of future for the, when the launch is happening, when, some dates that people can
Yeah,
look forward to?
hmm we can wait, but we have to make sure every compliance like process is done perfectly. So I think we will disclose this good news to you guys, all the investors on our website officially.
Okay, so
But
stay
no, stay
tuned for
tuned.
the launch date. Stay tuned for
Yeah.
a hash rate asset group. We'll be doing a celebratory space. We'll be doing some more live events around the actual launch. So if you missed it, you can come back and ask your questions and listen and learn from Joe. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Newton witnessed an apple falling and discovered gravity. Ruth Graves tried to bake a cake and accidentally discovered chocolate chips. Tracy Chapman was busking her way to her big break. We all wish for one opportunity, one unexpected chance to succeed, one rare possibility to change our lives forever. We can't all wait for an apple to fall, but we all want to be in the right place at the right time, where opportunities are carefully suggested and possibilities are available to all. INX One, wealth of investment opportunities.